Okay, let's talk about 9 millimeter high capacity versus 22 standard capacity, like a 10 round magazine. So we got a Taurus TH9 with the 17 round magazine, and we have a Browning Buckmark with a 10 round magazine. Now the thing is we have to understand is that when it comes to these magazines, we're going to see where the pros and cons of both are. I feel that single stack magazines are still relevant today and they're still good. Now, these magazines are steel and they've been around since 1985, so they've stood the test of time for being a reliable magazine. And these Taurus double stacks have proven themselves, even though not as many years. But what we want to do today is we want to compare single stack to double stack, comparing the 9 millimeter versus like the 22, like in just a standard capacity, which would be a 10 round. I know that there's 17 round mags out there for other guns, other 22s, but specifically talking about the Browning Buckmark 22 and the Taurus TH9, obviously a 9 millimeter. So let's look at some of the differences. Let's look at the weight. Let's look at a few different things here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point here and tell you what I've done here. So the Taurus TH9, a 17 round magazine, when it's weighed with the ammo, is 10.24 ounces. A Browning Buckmark 22 with the 10 round magazine is 3.23 ounces, but if you double that, it's 6.46 for 20 rounds, which is more than 17 rounds, and you're still lighter. So we're still a lot lighter as far as weight, with even though we have two 22 round or two 22 caliber 10 round magazines. So let's look at some of the pros and cons here. Okay, when it comes to weight, the Browning Buckmark is going to be lighter per round than the 9 millimeter. If we look at space, they're both pretty much equal because of the fact that you got 20 rounds here and you got 17 rounds here. And if you look at them and you account for the gaps and stuff that the 22 might have in here, they're pretty much about the same as far as taking up space. So we're not talking about weight here, we're talking about space. Okay, mag changes. Obviously, the 9 millimeters got 17 rounds, so you're going to have 7 more rounds until you have to change magazines. But the thing is that 10 rounds in any caliber, no matter what it is, you should be using them 10 rounds, and you should be trained enough to know how to use rounds so that you don't even need 10 rounds. And what's interesting is John Korea's channel and many other researchers like Claude Werner and me, including myself, we have found out that in most defense situations, when it comes to private citizens, this is not law enforcement, this is private citizens now, you usually don't have to change magazines. Why? Because usually the first shot's fired, usually the bad guys take off, okay? So it ends very, very quickly, and you might still have some in your magazine, even if you have a 10-round magazine. The mag dump would go to the 22 Buckmark. Even though it's 10 rounds, you can shoot it faster by pulling the trigger because of the light single action trigger, and it's a 22. Obviously, it's got less recoil, so you're gonna do a very, very fast mag dump with that, especially if you tricked out your trigger and gotten some upgrades on your 22. If you're carrying it, you guys know that the Browning Buckmark is similar to the 1911 as far as the safety. It's a real strong safety where you thumb it down on your draw. So you can have a very light trigger on a Browning Buckmark, a very light trigger if you want to, and still be able to carry it safely. Accuracy is going to go to the Buckmark, and it's not to say that the Taurus is inaccurate, but it's to say that the Browning Buckmark is a very, very accurate handgun, and it always has been, and that's why it's been around for so long. The energy goes to the 9 millimeter. The expansion of the bullet goes to 9 millimeter. Penetration goes to the 9 millimeter. But all of this right here, these factors, the damage factor, we have to understand the damage factor of a 9 millimeter is much higher than a 22. But you have to put that damage in the right spot. If you have a lot of damage and you don't put it in the right spot, it's not effective. And this is why the 22 can be effective if you put them shots where they need to go. Okay, dud rounds. It's not to say that the 22 is bad, but it probably has more rounds that won't go off because of the nature of the rim of a 22 cartridge. And the remedy for dud rounds is basically CCI mini mags, using a good brand of 22 that's reliable. And, CCI mini mags have always worked for me. I'm not saying that other brands are worse, but I'm just saying, as far as me, I find out that most of them go bang, when I need them to go bang. The other thing we have to consider here is whether you're a person using a 9mm or a 22, even if they're different pistols, what we have to understand too is it's not just about caliber, it's not just about capacity. Number one, we have to have situational awareness, because I'm sure a lot of competition shooters would agree with me on this, that no matter how fast you are, if you're not paying attention, somebody can get the drop on you, which means it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you're 1 second late on your draw, even a fifth of a second or half a second late on your draw, the other person can shoot you first. Why? Because you're not paying attention of your surroundings. So situational awareness, being aware of like law enforcement, the reason why they watch your hands is because they don't want you to draw on them. So we as citizens, we need to watch people's hands. You don't necessarily have to stare at people, okay? But you do need to watch those hands, because the only thing that can really kill you is their hands, whether it's open hands, a knife, or a firearm. So situational awareness is the fastest somebody can be, even if they're slower at the draw, because they're paying attention of their surroundings and they're prepared. And along with that can go body language. You can study body language for free on YouTube, so it's a very valuable asset to have. Studying ways people move, their eyes, different things like that can tell you if they're going to plan to do something to you. So what we got here first is situational awareness. Another thing is training, and I suppose situational awareness can be a part of the training, but I put training as number 2. Now, training has a lot of variables: your draw, your shot placement, your use of cover, clearing malfunctions. One can even say your physical fitness. Are you physically fit? Do you train where you run and gun with the firearm you carry? Now, what's been happening over the years with 22 pistols is we've noticed a few things. We've noticed, number one, there's more available 22 caliber handguns on the market. There's more high capacity 22 caliber pistols on the market. There's more people training with a 22. There's more people and manufacturers developing ways to make 22s more reliable, to penetrate better because they don't expand. So that's why we got the Federal Punch here in Minnesota. NOCA is a Federal Cartridge Company. We got Federal Punch. We got some ammo that's improving 22, depending on what kind of gun you got and what length of barrel. Results will vary depending on what you're shooting at and stuff like that. So basically what I'm saying today is, I'm not against low capacity magazines like 10 rounds, is considered just your basic magazine. I'm not against anybody having as much capacity as they want in a magazine. So for them states that ban people to only having a certain amount in a magazine, like 10 rounds, I don't think that's fair to the citizens. I think they should be able to have what they want because of our Second Amendment. And there might be a black swan event, which means very rare, where you're going to need a lot of rounds. And it's always better to have more rounds if you can, and I'm saying more rounds as far as the magazines, not a magazine, because a 22 caliber, I mean, you can have, we got four magazines right here, plus this one, and then one in the gun over there. So we're looking at, 60 rounds right there. Plus I've got a lot more of these, and I can carry a lot of them. So if I get pinned down, in a mall or something, or someplace I couldn't get out of, I got a lot of firepower. But not only that, 22 caliber, the interesting thing about 22 caliber is because of the weight and it being so light. Let me see if I can find my pouch here. Because the 22 is 22 caliber is such a light caliber as far as weight and stuff like that, you can carry more in another pouch. Like for instance, this pouch right here, I can fit 100 rounds of 22 without this thing even budging or without being too tight, as far as closing. I can fit 100 rounds in here. So if I have 60 on me and then 100 here, that's 160 rounds. That's a lot of firepower. Now, granted, a 22 has less energy, less expansion and stuff like that, but a 22 is very accurate. A Browning Buckmark is very accurate. I can take shots at water jugs at 75 yards, no problem. And I don't even consider myself to be a good shot or anything like that. But there's a lot of guys have no problem shooting water jugs at 75 yards with a 22 caliber, which is the same as hitting somebody in the head or something, And the critical thing about any self-defense is shot placement, because we want, as far as the heart goes, the heart could be, say, like about 4 inches wide. So what we want to do is we want to go for vitals, because if this was the heart, for instance, then the blood pressure would drop if we hit that area, okay? And then, of course, you have the vault in the brain between the eyes and the ears, which would be smaller than this, but I guess we could say 4 inches for head and heart. But that's why we do the failure drill, and that's why I still love the failure drill, because if you're doing a failure drill, for example, and you're using one piece of cover, that's a great drill to do, because it's the basics, and when you master the basics, that's really what help you in a self-defense situation. It's been proven that it's not the whiz-bang Hollywood stuff that saves your life in a private citizen self-defense situation. What has been proven is that it's all the basics is what saves people. Even the professionals, even the guys like law enforcement or anybody else, it always comes down to a few things. Number one, how you use cover. Number two, shot placement. And number three is your skill and your training that you revert back to, because because you've been training so much, and you go out and train with what you're using so much that when the time comes, you'll know what to do with it. And the advantage of a 22 is the fact that you can train over and over and over again. You can run and gun until you're worn out before you even spend enough ammo, which is very cool. So that means you could run and gun and wear yourself out and just do all kinds of defense drills and any kind of drill you want. But with a 9mm, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, okay? So like I said, there is advantages and disadvantages to the 9mm and the 22. But the thing is at the end of the day, it's what variables work for you, especially down here as far as your training, your situational awareness. There's much more when it comes to variables of what's going to save your life other than just capacity and caliber. Capacity and caliber is just a very small fragment, a very, very small slice of the pie, if you want to call it, into what is going to save your life in a self-defense situation. Now, thankfully, most self-defense situations, the overwhelming majority, the gun is out, people take off, okay? Sometimes the shot is fired, people take off. Sometimes people don't take off, you shoot more rounds, you go for the vitals, and you have to stop that person. But usually, most self-defense situations with private citizens, usually you don't have to kill the person or even stop the person, because they stop by simply running away. That's the same as stopping. So stopping power isn't necessarily somebody falling on the ground. Stopping power means when a person stops the act of attacking you. They're stopping the physical act of harming you with death, bodily harm, crippling injury, so on and so on. So that's what we need to clear up with 22 versus 9 versus 45 versus this versus that. You can take all the calibers and all the capacity you want, but what it really comes down to is the person, and so many variables with the person as far as who is behind the gun. Not the gun, it's who's behind the gun, it's who's using it. The skill of the person who's using the gun is what matters the most. And then all the other variables you're going to have as far as accuracy, how fast how fast is your follow-up shots, and different things like that. So everybody picks their own weapon that they're confident with, but once again, they have to train with it, see? And the thing is that the reason why I love 22 still is because I train with them, and sometimes I will strap on my Buckmark 22 and open or concealed carry this thing right here, and I'm ready to go. So if I'm going out to the range with this to train, I'm always going to have it on my side, which means I can defend myself with my Buckmark 22. So you can carry a 22 for defense and stuff. Yeah. And the thing is, somebody will say, well, what if one round doesn't go off? Well, that's why you got tap and rack. You guys know from using your 9s, you're always doing your stovepipe malfunction drills. You're doing your failure to eject and all this other stuff and double feeds. Well, you do the same thing with your 22 and you're fine. I do it with the 22 all the time. I have dummy rounds and I'll throw them in and I'll pretend that I had just fired a shot and now I fired the second. So, oh my gosh, what do I do? Okay, tap and rack, because I've been taught tap and rack and I do that all the time. So I'm going to tap, rack, get that round out, get a new round in. It's that simple. So even though 22, you might have, a round that doesn't go off. It's not the end of the world. You can just tap and rack real quick. And the other thing we have to understand is as soon as we get into a situation, the most important thing is getting to that cover. After we're situational aware, we prepare ourselves so that we could be around cover if something should break out, and stuff like that. If I feel that something's going to go down, say like at the gas station or whatever, I already got spots where I know I've got good cover, where I can still see the cashier and everything like that. And, it's stuff like that. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of every place you go to so that you have a pre-planned out way of knowing where the cover is and how you're going to defend yourself in that situation. And the way you do that is mental exercises where you imagine something taking place in your mind, and then you imagine what you're going to do about it. And the reason why we know mental imagery works really good for self-defense and other things is because basketball players and research and stuff like that has proven that if you do something in your mind, even though you're not doing it physically, if you just meditate and do it in your mind, that you're more likely to know what to do. It's kind of like a fire drill. You already know where the fire extinguisher is. You know what you're going to do if there's a fire should break out. You know that you're going to get everybody out of the house in a certain area, and the fire extinguisher is coming with you or whatever. You're going to try to fight the blaze and get everybody to a safe area, and things that you practice with and you do. But not only that, you imagine in your mind what you would do for a lot of things in life, basically. And it's good to pre-plan things in your head about what you would do if a certain situation came up. And Jeff Cooper calls it the what ifs. So you play out in your mind, what if this happens? What if that happens? How will I respond? What if this happens? What if that happens? So you can exercise your mind during the day thinking about what you would do in given situations and mentally be prepared, even though you haven't physically had to do it yet. But anyway, thank you for watching the video, you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.